Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of Spike Drop. We're a competitive Valorant podcast. KickedTripod here with Yiska and Volamel to bring you all that sweet Valorant beta action.
Good.
That good Valorant beta action. We're like, what now? 5 weeks? 5 weeks in to the beta at this point?
6 maybe even?
6?
Something like that, yeah.
It's been over a month for sure. And, man, it's still going pretty strong, I gotta say. It's, you always, every time there's a new game out, right, you always have the influx of new players and the streamers kind of go do their other things. But I think Valorant overall is, like, retained decently well.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would still kind of put it in the honeymoon era kind of side of things. But yeah,
for sure.
I mean, it's doing well. I kind of expected it to, but yeah, happy things are going kind of according to projections.
Yeah. So that's going on. Let's just get started with the housekeeping stuff. You can follow the show twitch.tv/KickedTripod, twitter.com/SpikeDrop, and YouTube at youtube.com/SpikeDrop. We got that pretty URL, custom URL now. Just go look for Spike Drop, and we're there now. That's great. Next stop, I think, is what we have to get 1,000 subs and like 40,000 viewer minutes, and then we can monetize. Woo! So that'll probably be a while. We're up to almost 200 subs though on that channel, so that's actually been growing pretty quick. So if you like the show, go sub on the YouTube. Helps a ton. Thank you for that. Big thanks to Blue for the intro and outro music. Go follow her on Twitch, baby FKNBLU. Baby Blue. I can't. That's the thing, is I can't say go follow baby Blue at baby Blue. I can't, because then you don't know what to do. You don't know what to go to. But that's where you need to go. Yeah. And other than that, we are on all the audio channels like iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Google Podcast, everywhere. So you can literally get the show anywhere. In fact, Joe, fun fact, did you know that there are about as many people listening to the audio version of this show as Tactical Crouch?
Really? I did not know that. That's actually pretty cool. Glad to see that people are getting in early with Valorant esports, and hopefully we can be a home for all things Valorant competitive esports, tournament things and stuff like that. We can be your home for that stuff.
Yeah. Socrates asked if this is live. No, it is not. This is not live.
Yeah, no. Kind of live, dude.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead. Let's jump into the news. No, wrong one. That one. Too many buttons. All right. First big one. Well, it's not really the first big one, but kind of cool. Friend of the show from our Overwatch days, Dennis, also known as Baroy, has, over the past few weeks, launched his website, cyphercam.org. And so for those who don't know, Dennis has a really rich history, and it's an AI with multiple neural networks that go over like thousands of hours of gameplay, and grab stats and insights from those gameplay. It's really fascinating. I mean, he's a huge brain. So he did this for, I guess I didn't know this, but he did it for esports betting for a while and just made money doing that. And then made Winston's Lab, which had some pretty big investors behind it, and he was so successful with it that the Toronto Defiant brought him on as their analyst to do it specifically for them. So, but we kind of got a little bit more of an insight of what CypherCam is doing, what the plans are. And Yiska, I know for you specifically, you love these types of stats things.
Yeah. I mean, the inside already with the ultimate statistics and whatnot, like, yes, a lot of that could be copied over from Winston's lab. That doesn't make it not like the best stats tool that I've seen, at least. Like the analytical information you get, like what kind of ultimate wins you the most rounds, which probably, like, depending, and you can filter for the map, that's also important, but gives you information who to give the ops to, or who to give the diffuse to. These types of things. And that stuff definitely is amazing. The player stuff is amazing. Of course, there's a lot of different tournaments, and they kind of have not crystallized what the best tournaments or teams or players are. But like, he already has these match stats in there, and then also player stats, which is pretty cool as well. Like on top of everything else, right? So already a super powerful tool, and only scales exponentially with the data fed into it. So definitely looking forward to what's that.
It's interesting. I think we saw this with Winston's lab, and Dream actually said this too. Is we learned a lot about the fundamentals of Overwatch and competitive Overwatch through like stats and insights from early on Winston's lab. And I think we're doing the same thing with Cypher Cam. I think later on it's a lot more just kind of data junkying, and there's like, you have to kind of really dig deep and find and hope that you can find some sort of actual strong correlative insights and stuff. But like for right now, there's a lot of really good information. Like you're seeing pick rates, you know, be like heavily influenced by their win rates, and you're seeing that in the game right now, and just even things like that I think is just really interesting to see. And I think Cypher Cam like is kind of leading the charge in that arena, although we don't know what the Valorant API is going to do, right? We do know that there is going to be one.
True.
And I know Dennis said that he plans on using the Valorant API stuff if and when it comes available, and it's, you know, the right kind of info. Because like Overwatch had an API, but it didn't really grab any of those numbers. And then especially esports API, like they don't really have one. Now we finally have Stats Lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's still kind of hard to pull raw data from unless like you have all the right tools, and it's just kind of, I don't know, not my favorite implementation on it, but it's better than nothing, I guess I would say.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they were gathering API access, or they were taking signups already very early. I remember like 4 or 5 weeks back, they were already saying, if you want to do anything, please apply to us, and then we might talk about it. And that's already, if they actually give you full API access and you can just tinker around with that stuff, that's pre-release better than Overwatch.
Yep.
Like instantly.
That's kind of what I'm excited with, is to see like a fully unlocked Broy, because again, like going back, like listening to him talk about what he could do with like not full access, but even just a little bit more access than what Blizzard was giving him with Overwatch, like it was some wizardry. I stand by the idea that, you know, knowledge and technology at some point is just like some arcane magic stuff that I'm like, I don't care. You don't have to explain it to me. Just, you know, give me the end result and turn that water into wine, and, you know, I'll be sipping on that. So I'll be very excited if Cypher Cam and Broy in general just get in and get access and start cranking out some crazy stuff.
I remember, did you know that Overwatch League Daily was on the front page of Winston's lab for a while?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Tactical Crouch still technically is on, I think, the front page of Winston's lab.
Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
Like, I don't think it gets a lot of traffic anymore.
I go on there every once in a while. Gotta double check some things and stuff.
Go back and check out the old stats.
Probably the only one. Yeah.
It constantly tells me it's not safe.
Yeah. It does that for me too. My antivirus is like, hey, are you sure you want to go here? I'm like, yeah, I'm positive. It's okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Click the ads,
Yeah.
Good times. But yeah, CypherCam, if you're a stats nerd, if you want to get into Valorant early, frequent that site for sure.
Yep. A lot to be gleaned from. I feel like you can make amazing content like on YouTube and stuff too, just from the insights that you grab from CypherCam. Baroy actually joined chat and he says to click the ads on Winston's Lab. I don't know if I don't know if I recommend it. I don't know.
It's like $5.
Google AdSense money,
Click the ads on CypherCam.
That too.
Should be the same, right? Anyways.
Maybe.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was cool insight. Dennis asked why we didn't have him on the show, and good question. Maybe for next week. Lol.
Base.
Really? Is that how it works? Can you do that?
Do what?
Is he allowed to?
Was the defined OEM person for PR one of the 13 let go, or like is that just
the reins are off?
If that works,
Unchained.
of course, nice. Let's go.
Roy's always a huge 900 IQ brain to sit and run things by.
For sure.
Be a good time.
Cool. Yeah, so a really cool blog post on that. Let's talk about, we had another blog post. This one was from the Valorant team on Peeker's Advantage and Ranked. One of the things that Valorant was originally touted as is having, I remember it as essentially being Peeker's Advantage is going to be less of a thing than any other FPS before it. Was how I felt that they positioned it without going back and verifying any of that. Just like, that's kind of what I felt that they had said. I feel like some people heard their comments on Peeker's Advantage and say that Peeker's Advantage wouldn't be a thing in the game, which I think was misguided from the beginning.
Yeah.
So they put together a blog post to just kind of explain Peeker's Advantage, how it happens, and how they're trying to mitigate it. And the first, there is the first paragraph, I think, sums up kind of Peeker's Advantage really well. He goes, they go, until humanity learns to move faster than the speed of light, Peeker's Advantage is never going away. It's something that exists for all games. That being said, our goal is to minimize it as much as possible in Valorant. Philosophically, we believe the less Peeker's Advantage there is, the more tactical the game's meta becomes. So, essentially, Peeker's Advantage, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but essentially, if you are the first one to make a move into a frame, to make a move to shoot somebody or to position yourself to shoot somebody, you have the advantage because there's a time in the network from when your enemies, from when your enemy's client updates with your position, right? So you can see them, but hypothetically, there's like 17.5 milliseconds is 70% of the player population.
Yeah.
So there's a 17.5 millisecond delay from when you actually turn the corner to when hypothetically the other person could see you if they had instantaneous reflexes. I think that's a one-way network lag. Average human reaction time is 240 milliseconds. Anyways, so the idea is that you have the advantage by making the move. And there's been complaints that they feel that Peeker's Advantage right now in Valorant is worse than some of its counterparts specifically CS:GO. So I don't know. What do you guys think on this? Have you noticed any, like, for me, I don't think I'm good enough to say like, oh man, that peeker's advantage, yo.
Yeah,
like,
I'm never the person to be like, oh, drat, I have my 60 FPS monitor is really, you know, bogging me down, and darn, that 7 extra milliseconds of lag really got me there. Like, I don't know, like, I just didn't crosshair place. Like, I go back to like the fundamentals and blame myself rather than like looking at that. And maybe I'm incorrect for doing that. I think we talked about that not so long ago when we were doing some reaction test things, but and maybe that's my own naivety. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about network latency and frame this, that. I don't know the technical side of this. So it's completely, I don't think it means a lot, but there again, maybe I'm just the idiot in the room.
Yeah, no, I think it's like, I always felt it was pretty big. The thing is, logically, it makes total sense that it isn't much better than, or cannot be much worse than in other games, unless there's something they're not telling us.
Sure.
Right? So, Pika's advantage is a thing in every shooter, logically. But I wonder if there's something else where it feels like very detrimental. Because I feel like holding an angle, unless you're doing like long off-angle peaks or like pixel peaks, feels terrible. Like holding a corner feels awful. If I can help it, even defensively, I just jiggle peek it in order to have the advantage eventually. And yeah, I don't know. That's the problem really is, as also Dream said in chat, like the same with the cheating situation.
Yeah. Yes.
They promised a lot, and then,
well, they didn't promise anything. They said they made it seem like they had these big sweeping solutions to these problems being Peeker's advantage and cheating, and it turns out not necessarily the case, at least on release. So it's the feeling that they had these big systems to kind of combat these things, and they're not working as intended, let's say. But they didn't promise anything, to be fair. They didn't say, we're going to solve cheating in video games.
No Peeker's advantage.
No, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think that they ever said that, but I agree in the sense that, you know, they positioned the communication, intentionally or not, in a way that made you believe that they had a solution to problems other games couldn't solve.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Definitely it came across as like aggressive, like we have innovations to show you. And so far, it doesn't really seem like there's much innovation. I won't speak too much on the Peeker's advantage and the frame rate and the interpolation and, you know, the technical side of things. I personally haven't had too much issue with that. But again, maybe I'm just not like, I don't know enough about these types of games to be able to figure that out, and when it happens to me and when it doesn't. But yeah, the cheating thing in general, it's like, well, not working so great. And you've got it, you know, we talked about it last show. So if you want like a more in-depth discussion on, you know, Vanguard and the progression of the narrative around it, not exactly the kind of a false bill of goods feeling. You said one thing and we're getting something a little different. So not my favorite thing ever.
Yeah. And betraying expectations is always, I feel like you make it worse for yourself. Even if you gain maybe a little bit in marketing, it's something that sticks. And then as soon as, like, you can have an objectively, maybe even slightly better product than the market, but as long as you're not meeting these expectations, I feel like it seeps into the discourse of the game, where people will just complain about that stuff non-stop, even though they're probably playing a much crisper experience than whatever other competitors are offering. And I wonder how smart of a thing that was. With the Pika's advantage, I don't even mind that much. but like the cheating thing is just taunting, right? And
Yeah.
that was probably actively dumb to do.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that turns out. Like there have been some theories I read on the subreddits, or like allegedly
There are already
that,
conspiracies brewing.
no, allegedly things that developers said, where it's just like, yeah, they don't expect to be cheatless right now. They're just collecting a bunch of stuff, and as soon as it launches, they're just nuking all these access points and something like that. I'm like, okay, if that's how it works, then we'll see. But I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. When you come out and kind of, like you said, taunt people who are looking to cheat, I feel like that does nothing but like motivate them. Where it's like, obviously, you know, the whole misinterpretation of I think what I said last show of, you know, like trying to pay to get people to cheat, like giving them a reward. Obviously, that's not directly the case, but you know, obviously Riot has rewards out to kind of entice people to kind of break their system, not necessarily in the cheating front, but like the network and more technical side of things.
Or the like the tertiary technologies that enable that, or the vulnerabilities that there are there for them.
I'll also straight up tell you, it comes off differently when it's a company that has exactly one product that it's known for. Exactly one. And they're just coming onto the market going like, bro, we can
can't cheat in our games.
And our FGC game, bro, we also will figure that all of that latency stuff out. It's like, please, bro, like at least.
I don't know that anybody else has like. Maybe I'll just throw this out there, and you tell me if you have followed it at all. Is anybody caught up with like the Evo Online debacle?
No.
So do you guys understand what Evo is? I promise this isn't too crazy. So Evo is like this big like fighting game tournament. It's like probably one of the more well-known ones in the world, if not the biggest. And because of COVID, they're having to move it online. And there are games being left out because of like netcode and lag problems to just like infrastructurally wrong with the game. So people are like hoping that Riot can like solve that problem and be like a forerunner in terms of like having a fighting game that has relatively good netcode and things like that. So again, that we could see that spin, that kind of PR spin turn up as that game gets closer to alpha and beta and whatnot. Like, oh, you know, we had this problem over here with like online netcode and lag problems, but we've got a solution for that. Will that actually be the case, though? I don't know. Seemingly getting a little bit of hubris from Riot at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's interesting, right? It kind of reminds me of like pre all this, and I would say even so, like Riot with League of Legends, Riot is held in pretty high regard as a game developer. Just thinking from League of Legends only, they come out with TFT. It's a fun game. People generally enjoy it. They're expanding rapidly into multiple franchises in the course of like 2 years and multiple different game types. And it reminds me a little bit of Blizzard post StarCraft a little bit, where it's like their previous products had some golden touch to it a little bit. And then, now we've got Heroes of the Storm. We've got, which for whatever we can say, I'm not saying so much about the game, the success of a game on gameplay on itself, but it's not a game people talk about anymore. Might be a good game, but it's just not a game that people play or talk about.
And if they do talk about it, it's usually not for good reasons.
Right. So you've got that they took some PR hits over the past couple years, and you just don't want to see Riot starting to do the same thing, where they kind of built some trust and loyalty, especially I think for people outside of the League of Legends community. So like for me, I'm not super involved in League of Legends, and I bet you that there's like 100 people right now chomping at the bit to be like, bro, you haven't played League because we hate this, but we hate this, and this sucks, and they can't do this, and they can't balance that. I'm sure that there are those things. In the same way that, my niece loves, and her friends, they love Overwatch. I think it's the best thing in the world, and I'd just be like, girl, if only you knew. If only you knew. But that's just not the world we live in, unfortunately. So anyways, I don't know. I think that they swung for the fences a little bit on their marketing speak, and usually it's better to underpromise and overdeliver, or to make a big promise when you're 100% sure you can deliver.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that they quite did that. So
I don't think this is like mega detrimental. It definitely is like a PR hit, especially if this continues, like with Beaker's advantage and the cheating aspect of things. But I don't think it's anything that's going to be like mega detrimental. Like the game isn't going to die over it. It'll just be kind of like a meme point from here on out. Like, haha, Vanguard, going to stop them cheaters. Beaker's advantage. Remember when we talked about Project A? And yeah, no, it's a knock against them, but it's not like game, world ending, stuff like that. Yeah, we'll see. There are other things that could happen that definitely sway me one way or the other with this, but this one's like, it is what it is.
They did announce that they banned just shy of 9,000 cheaters, which for me feels like a really small number. I'm not gonna lie. Like I don't know how big the pool is, but I think it was like 8,873 cheaters, and they kind of touted it as like, don't cheat in the game, and me thinking like, it has to be millions playing at this point.
And I said that last show. I'm like, with how much bad PR they're getting, they're going to come out and ban, like they're going to get a ban wave just to kind of like show people, hey guys, it's working. The system's working as intended. Look, we just banned a bunch of people. Isn't that great? It's working. Like we're getting rid of the cheaters. No, it's not.
There's no way.
It's going to sway opinion. It's going to be like, oh, okay, well, all right. You're doing things. You're making moves. Okay. It's going to put us at ease. It's just to satiate the community instead of like actually doing something. It's skimming off the top. That's all.
Yeah. All right. Ranked. We did get Ian Fielding, is the product manager for the competitive team, and took a little time to clarify some things about ranked. 50K beta keys per region. I would need to see the numbers on that. I don't think that's the number, but maybe it is.
Oh yeah, soul banning people. I love how they just develop their own lingo. We're gonna soul ban you. Even if you come back from the dead with the Necronomicon, you're banned still. Like, huh? Yeah. Why does this have to be so edgy? Just hardware ban, IP ban, like we already have this language established.
Everything have to be so edgy, dude. Like, Jesus Christ.
Straight to the shadow realm. Yep.
So anyways, pre-made sizes for ranks. So right now, we're used to this in Overwatch where there's no solo queue, there's no duo queue. It's just adaptive party size queuing where you can queue with any size party, and they're going to try and match you up against similarly skilled players and with similarly skilled or similarly sized teams. So if you 5-stack, the chances of you playing against a 5-stack are higher. And if you are, solo or duo queuing, the chances of you playing with other players who are solo and duo queuing is also higher as well. Yiska, I hate this.
Really?
I don't like it.
Okay, then explain why.
I hate.
Yeah,
so
what do you not like about it?
Here's what I hate about dynamic queue, and it's not that I don't. It's not that I hate dynamic queue. I hate that there's not either a solo queue option or a 5-man queue option.
Okay.
And the reason why is this. Number one, I find that when I'm soloing, I get teamed up with 4 stacks a lot. And then we go up against 5 stacks or other like 4-on-1 stacks. And that's just not like that fun. And I don't want to play. I don't always want to have to play a game with a group of 4 friends because I don't have that many friends. Number one, like, let's just be realistic. But number two, all my friends are better than me. So like, it's just like, there's all these different reasons. There's no in-game LFG tool. There's no anything there. I just like, I think the skills it takes to be a solo queue player in Valorant is different than what it takes to be a 5Q player. And if you're not looking to be a competitive person, I think that there are advantages to having some sort of separation in the competitive queues.
I think dynamic queue only ever works if the environment is not serious. Then it's a good idea.
Sure. Yeah. Quick play, dynamic queue all day long. Fine.
And also when you're like in CS:GO, it's not a huge thing because nobody really cares that much about solo queue rank, right? Like the real sweaty tryhards start probably playing ECA or Face It or whatnot, right? Yeah. So it never really felt that terrible. Other than playing, like when you get to play in Europe and you're solo queuing, and it's always 4 Russians, basically always, every single time. And it's the problem is that you can't communicate with them. That is the problem, and they also get visibly frustrated at you. So like these types of experiences aren't fun. But
I get more frustrated not from being able to not communicate with them than it is to have toxic comms with people, which I think could be another thing to, address, is like, how do you address toxicity in comms in a competitive game?
Yeah. It's a topical one as well, but yeah, it's a hard thing to do. I think like 5-man queue, especially if we want to have something like tournaments.
Yes.
Like leading up to that makes perfect sense. Just have dynamic queue. Probably, what would you? 4 is already too much because, like, being the only guy in a match of 4 is not fun. So it's probably like dynamic queue, like 1, 2, 3 players, and then you have then you cannot. I mean, what do you do with when you want to queue with 4? How would you solve that?
So you could have a flex queue where you could go into either and then potentially get faster queue times.
Sure.
But like that's the only solution that I think I've seen doing, or you just can't queue with 4. Like you just can't. You play with 5 or you play 3.
Like there would have to be some thing, right?
I'm still mega on board with like taking and again, like maybe I'm just speaking completely out my rear end on this one, but taking what they've learned from Clash and how successful that seemingly has been. Again, I don't have access to any of their numbers, but I think it's just been a resounding success across a lot of different skill levels and in a giant evolution past the 5 stack ladder. Because back in the day on League of Legends, you'd have a 5 stack ladder that just nobody played. Nobody cared. Like everybody was just solo duo queuing, and that was just what they played. People, there was like a small community there. There were certain pro players, in the early days that would play 5 stacks and, trying to climb the ladder. And it didn't really mean much because nobody really used it. And eventually it just kind of got tossed to the wayside and scrapped. And Clash kind of is the, what's the term in movies? It's like the soul, not the soul band, but the spiritual successor. There we go. We got soul there. Band. The spiritual successor. I was close. Okay, I was in the right realm. The spiritual successor to 5, the 5 stack ladder is the the Clash experience, and I think that's the next step forward in terms of ranked for Valorant. I think my big problem is like their reasoning in this really doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd kind of more attack it towards like the algorithm where it's like the team that has the group versus the team that's just the individuals feels very skewed in one way and not the other. And it never feels good. If you're a 4-in-1 stack, right? Like you have a group of 4 people and an extra person versus just a bunch of individuals, that the skill disparity between that is supposed to be made up by the communication that the group brings. It's never the case. So you have just like massive mechanic disparity, and you just in my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, I feel like you just get like monstered, and it's usually not close. The more people, it feels like the more people that you play with, algorithmically puts you like in a weird space, and it doesn't seem to work. Maybe that's just an Overwatch thing. We'll see. I don't know.
My understanding is that they don't account for skill differences. They just match you up with larger group sizes.
They got it.
Well, obviously they can't all the time. So they have to make some exceptions and say, okay, well, we have a 3 stack and you have a 4 stack. So we can justify this by giving them like a couple extra better teammates to kind of weigh that out. Like there's
guaranteed to be an algorithmic
it's not a
way
guarantee.
to apply to every more
Yeah.
teammate you have. Like the skill level. Let's say you have an average MMR, right, of everyone in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Then there would be a certain weight applied to you being grouped with, or like people being grouped. So everyone's solo queue. Everyone's, let's say, at 3K MMR. On average, they're personal, and then on one team there's 2 being grouped, so that would put it at 350 MMR or something like that. Round about that way is probably how I envision that to work in basically every ranking scenario, where they probably have some win rate data where they say, okay, here like stacks are advantaged in terms of win rate by this much. Therefore, this is the weight that makes sense here.
Yeah.
And it should be that way as well, ironically. I don't know if I'm just playing with bad people constantly, but like if I team queue, I always do worse than I have a much worse win rate than when I play solo queue for some reason.
I won't put numbers to it, right? Maybe it's a social thing that, you know, you're not focusing the way you should in like a solo environment. I don't know what it is, but it seems like dynamic queues, when you're playing in a dynamic queue or in a dynamic group, let's say, it feels like you do worse. And I don't know if that's the algorithm. I don't know if that's, you know, how matchmaking is balancing you. I don't know if that's a social thing. Just feels worse. So let's just keep it at solo and leave it as is. Like, why are we trying to get people to play together when you have your most successful, literally the only other title you've ever built, granted, I guess TFT is a thing, like you said, it kind of proving you wrong. It doesn't, I don't know. It seems like the left hand and the right hand aren't speaking much.
But I mean, this is the same justification that Overwatch used, right? Is they want their game to be played in groups. They want people to play with friends. And here's the thing, though: when you force me to do that, or else I'm like severely handicapped in some way, I'm just not going to play your game anymore. Like, that's just what ends up. First of all, when I want to play a game in a group, I raid with my friends in WoW. Like, that's my group game. That's my group time. And you know what? If 3 friends are on and we want to hop in competitive queue, awesome. Like, we'll do that. But I also am like, I remember going through placements and some people were like, nah, man, I can't play unless we get a 5 stack. Like, I don't want to play unless we get a.
Yep. You're going to get those people.
And like,
and to their point, sometimes they're right. Sometimes it's just better to queue with people. It's just like factually, like, you're going to climb more if you play with people in some cases. Which kind of clouds the ranking. I don't know. I'd like to leave it like, okay, unrated, you can flex, you can do whatever you want out of ranked. But in ranked, especially going to one of Yiska's points on some of the earlier podcasts, if they're going to kind of incentivize you to place well on the ladder, either with like cash bonuses or, you know, some sort of merch reward, do you want to kind of cloud that with dynamic queue? I don't know. I think it would be just better if you just left it alone in this, you know, isolated chamber and you walk in and get tested. And you go from there. There's no boosting. There's no playing with friends that are better than you. There's no carrying. It's just you against the world and you get placed. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But maybe that's another ladder that they haven't established yet. Who knows? Like, again, still beta.
The thing is, like, I mean, there's ways that they can break this up that I would be happy with. But just saying only dynamic queue, for me, it just feels like an oversight.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, we need to move on from that and talk about the patch notes. So on May 12th, we did get a pretty big patch. Lots of changes and fixes. It's kind of broken up based up on weapons and combat, heroes, ability tuning, and then just like general map and econ stuff. Let's go to weapon and combat first, and I'm just gonna hit the big ones. No, you can no longer enter walking accuracy during your run to stop transition. So this is more of a graphical fix than anything, but essentially what appears to happen is when you go from running to walking, your accuracy goes up, right? But some people, it appears that, and this again kind of has to do with just like the latency of the server and all that kind of stuff, but it basically appears that they're shooting accurately while they're running, and then they slow down and stop afterwards. So they fixed,
or not at all,
yeah. So they fixed the kind of bug or whatever, and whether it's kind of graphical or underlying or both. But that's a pretty big one, I think, right? Tap and burst firing efficiency increase as well. And your base walk accuracy has been decreased from 0.6 to 0.8 degrees. You're cringing, Joe.
I mean, it's less to do with cringe, and it's a lot of little things that kind of just go over my head. Like Dream's pointing out in chat, like this kind of random jargon of tap efficiency. Like, I don't know. They try to explain it, but I really don't feel like it does a good job of conveying what they mean, if they mean anything different. I don't know.
Maybe recall reset between, like, if you just one tap. And
I would imagine that's what that means,
like
right?
That. Yeah.
I've got to imagine that's exactly what they're trying to say, but they get to that conclusion like really
But that
weird.
Number makes no sense. Like,
yeah,
that
it's
number
just
might
it's
as well
an
be 10
arbitrary
million.
number.
And
right.
I just go, yeah, that's 10 million. That makes perfect sense. Like,
yeah, it's just they grade it on a scale from like 1 to 10, and it can mean whatever they want it to. I don't know. It's a very weird justifier. Like, I appreciate the transparency, but yeah, I don't know what a lot of this stuff genuinely means. Stuff like this makes my eyes just glaze over, and it's just like, okay, less accurate, more accurate. Just give me the TLDR. I don't know what any of this means.
That's the one thing that I'm missing, even though it's a super 1990 like technology, is the console. Like console with like everything in there. Like, you want to change your mouse sense? Okay, open console, mouse console, mouse X, these types of things. Or even the interp rate, you could set yourself there for a time. I remember we were playing ridiculous interps in 1.3. But yeah, that type of stuff is kind of like, that's almost in the essence of the FPS player. I feel like these startup configs and that type. But it's super like old school stuff. But just to be able to, for instance, like sit in a practice range and be able to tinker around with these values to get a feel for that yourself through the console, that would be pretty dope. Would probably also lead to people having a better idea how things interact and how to come up with suggestions for balance changes. But yeah, I mean, it is super like last 2 decades ago, that type of way to basically soft code your own game experience and having to learn all these commands, right?
Yeah. I mean, this stuff in general, like, it seems good-ish. I don't know. Like, the tap efficiency feels, I don't know. It doesn't feel any different. I don't know.
We're just too bad to notice.
It definitely is probably the case that we're just not noticing anything.
I think I'm down behind the rationale for all of these changes. I don't know if the number changes are right, because again, like, we don't know what 4 to 6 is. Realistically, 4 to 6 is just a representation probably of a scale of multiple variables.
Yeah.
We don't really know what those are. But yeah, so realistically, it's probably something like that, and we just don't know specifically what it is. But overall, like, I think the justification for it is is okay. And I do agree. I think people were a little bit too mobile with their accuracy prior to this patch, in the sense that it felt like you could move a little bit too much for the type of damage that you were being rewarded for, and the lack of punishment. Yeah, the lack of inaccuracy that came from that. So, Vandal and Phantom tap efficiency increased and gun recovery time reduced. Okay. This is kind of a big one. So the Ares, price reduced from 1,700 to 1,600. Firing error reduced, and they reduced the yaw recoil after 8 bullets. Basically, it got a pretty big buff. And some people have said, or are saying, and I haven't actually followed up on this too much, that the Ares could replace the Scepter in a lot of situations as an early game, like half buy gun. Thoughts?
I like the idea. Like, it's an interesting thought, especially like hot off the patch.
Spectre, right? Not Scepter. Thank you.
With testing it, I don't think the Ares, like, it's costed aggressively 100%. Like, I would agree with that. Like, having the same price point as a Spectre is aggressive, so that's definitely pushing people in a direction. But this gun is still like pea garbage. It spreads all over the place. It does pretty low damage. It has a giant clip. I mean, that's somewhat useful, but I don't see it kind of replacing the Spectre. I think the Spectre, just in general, way more accurate.
It's more damage. But it's so the idea behind the Ares though is like you're kind of pre-firing, right? Like it's the ramp up to get to the like peak accuracy and damage. And while I would agree, like the first 10 or so bullets or whatever are pretty I think that after that, from what I've seen from like good players, I think that there are at the very least cases that to be made that if you are attacking or defending certain parts of the map, that it would be a better choice than a Spectre.
Is that a question? I don't know.
Just kind of just a statement. It's just a conversation. It's a podcast.
No. I
totally
just don't know.
I don't know anything about the weapon. I should have probably just tried it out for shits and giggles.
I played with it a little earlier. I just don't think it doesn't, like, it seems okay as like a mid to close, but I really don't see a use for it. Like, people are in chat are saying it's area control. It doesn't seem stronger than
it's
utility
control.
I don't see a use for it. I think the Spectre's better. It is interesting to kind of look at in general with how some of these guns are designed, if that makes sense. Like, they're really pricing some of these lower cost guns pretty aggressively. So they're making them really low cost, but they have like a lot of utility. So you can ADS with them. The Bucky obviously was a topic a couple shows ago that has like a range increase on it, which again I think is dangerous. What you kind of don't want to have happen is, with a couple extra balance changes, with what's happening with the Ares, you get like this force buy meta where you're just trying to maximize your dollars spent in terms of, strength on each round. And you're just trying to have like this consistent throughput where it's like, I can buy this gun. It's cheap. It doesn't matter if I don't have an AK because it still does like a similar job, not the same job, but a similar job, and with a similar strength. That's what you kind of don't want. And I worry that with these price reductions on these guns, and they're trying to make what are effectively just bad guns be good guns, and they're trying to balance like all of these guns, it feels like we could get to that point in the future. I think they're just always going to be bad guns. We don't need to balance them. They'll find a niche use and they'll be fun to use. we don't need LMGs to be strong.
Interesting. I disagree, but
Okay.
I guess I wouldn't say strong. Playable.
Okay.
I think LMG should be playable. I think that they should have their niche. I think that there should be places that you want to use one. I don't know if I like it being a default better pick over the other like SMGs, right? That's what they're called.
Yeah.
Right? That's yeah.
Spectres,
so,
SMG.
Yeah, the Spectre. Like I don't know if
LMG
they should just be
the big ones.
universally better. I don't think that that's
Okay.
good balance either. But I think that there are probably parts on maps where, you know, it's better to hold an LMG over an SMG, and to balance toward that, I think is a good thing.
I have to defer to CS here, and I don't want to, but I really can't find it. Has like the Negev ever been useful?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Since the rework, I haven't played or followed much CS.
I mean,
but
CS in the same way is kind of having that same problem where they're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to change it a little bit and we're going to try and spice it up and we're going to, you know, drop the price on it. I really don't think it gets used. I just don't know that they're super useful unless you add some sort of like suppression mechanic, which that gets into some wonky territory. It's just about putting damage and hitboxes out there in a game that's like hyper focused on one taps to the head. I mean, not hyper focused, but you get the gist of it. Like it's about accuracy. It's not about just putting bullets down the range. So I don't know that they even have a room for it, like LMGs in these types of games. I just don't think they should be in here. They just don't make sense. I mean, they're fun just to screw around with. And
I'm definitely not a CS:GO guy. So like I get that I'm totally ignorant on like what works in that game. And I also understand that CS:GO is kind of like, it's, you know, it's like League of Legends is to MOBAs what CS:GO is to like kind of that style of like arena FPS shooter type of thing. And if you're going to make something in that genre, there are certain like design principles that you don't break. And if LMGs are one of those, then fine. For me, it just sounds like they're just taking a different approach to LMGs and how it's balanced. It's also my understanding that like Valorant maps are far more tubular and tunnely and cornery than CS:GO is, which I think incentivizes you to pre-fire corners more, which could, like, you know, leave.
so you're saying because there's more
LMGs,
corners,
maybe like I don't.
Yeah,
seems more bangable. Like
I mean, sure, but is that really what you want to do? Is you want to force attacking teams to, like, again, like vacuumizing the argument for a second?
Yeah.
Do you really want to force teams to just like try to pre-fire every corner because there's just a lot of corners?
Of course not, right? Like that's not. And again,
right.
I don't want LMGs to be that, and I don't want map design to be that. But recognizing that there are situations that I feel like that is especially effective, and having a gun that is better at that's an LMG, I think is a okay design decision. And I don't think that, well, they don't do that in CS:GO is quite enough to not do it in Valorant.
Hopefully the argument isn't being viewed as hand wave CS:GO doesn't do this. It's more of these don't work in CS. They've never worked, at least in my discussion, in my, you know,
how much are the LMGs in CS:GO?
They're like definitely a lot more.
Okay, like maybe that is too, because like we're still talking 1600, right? We're talking
1600, but the damage is like not good.
We're still talking 1300 less than your AR
totally.
At that point, right?
Still like doesn't do damage though. Takes like 3 to the head. It's a lot.
Yeah, but the ramp up in fire speed is
as 3 to the head though. I can sheriff you in the face. I can buy a Vandal. I can buy a Phantom. Spectres too, and they're quick. I don't know. I don't think the gun's good.
All right, we'll just watch. We're gonna see what happens with the areas in the future. We'll see how the pros are using it. I know.
Sure.
I'm interested to see now with this buff. I want to see if anyone's using them in the Valhalla tournament this weekend. I'll be watching all those games, so I'll let you know how that plays out in pro play at the very least, and see if we see any play there. But we got to move on, and let's talk about heroes. Sage's slow orb duration reduced from 9 to 7. The slow speed has been reduced from 65 to 58%. So if you're walking in the ice, your speed is reduced. Instead of by 65%, it's only by 50%. And yeah, so those are big changes. And here's actually, I want to talk about that other part for a second. So overall, Joe, how do you feel about, Sage is obviously the number one picked hero or agent in the game, right? By far. She's got a powerful kit. They changed the slow orb. They also adjusted that her barrier orb costs 100 more now. So instead of 300, it's 400.
Yep.
Are these in kind of alignment of the changes you want to see to Sage?
I think in general they've tackled it in a subtle way. I still think that barrier orb is very strong, but they're making it cost a little bit more is definitely an interesting way to balance it. I still think it's pretty busted. I think the slow orb is much more in line with what would be viewed as reasonable. Like the area is significantly reduced, the duration significantly reduced, feels better, doesn't feel as oppressive, but I don't think that really strips Sage of any of her power. I think she's a little bit weaker on pistol rounds because she can't just roll out with a ghost and a wall. If I'm mathing correctly, at least I heard as much. So I think that helps in certain circumstances, but I don't see this as being the change that really plummets her out of vogue. I think she's still incredibly strong. The healing is a definite, hasn't been touched. I don't think it's that huge of a deal. It's definitely a plus point for her, but I like where they're headed with the slow orbs. I still think wall needs to be changed, either duration or just like health pool wise on each segment. But what are you gonna do? I don't know. I think this is fine. It's a good step in the right direction, I'd say, with Sage. I like the fact that they are balancing with the prices in mind. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And it feels significant.
Yeah,
like
it's not
your pistol rounds are capped now. Like your choice is either ghost or wall.
Yep.
And that's a big difference, but also it adds up. I felt like these 100, like wall, you pretty much use every round, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that 100 that was losing more, that actually added up. Where I'm like, oh yeah, I actually can't buy 2 slow ups here.
And they did that across the board, which we'll get to. Like, there's a lot of abilities that have been increased in terms of price, which I think is, I think I like that idea in general. It's just like making the economy just a little bit more punishing and increasing that utility cost and making people like really feel like they're investing into something rather than just, well, I buy all my utility, I buy a gun and we go. It's like it's a little bit more strategic now, which I like.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on them describing Sage as the premier staller?
I mean, I think it's accurate.
Is it? Do we want a specific like hero being a premier? Like, this is the good staller. Like, do you?
I mean, the second best staller is Cypher, which probably is much less overpowered, right?
Is it Cypher?
I think there's definitely a bunch of heroes that I think I wouldn't be mad at, but I think Cypher's definitely up there for sure. But he also they've also given him like the premier like information gatherer. Right. So maybe that's a question that we could ask is like, well, what if you have an agent that does 2 really, really well? Is that something you want? Is that overpowered? I don't know. I guess that's more of an internal question. I'd say that if they do both roles really, really well, and those are the 2 roles that you're kind of going to develop, then maybe he needs to really, I guess it depends on how many get cut down.
How many agents we end up having, right? Like right now, it's probably fine to have a premier staller, but if you have 30 agents and only one is a premier staller, then like what?
Yeah. The thing really is, you're actually right, John, when you asked like, is Cypher the second? Because Cypher shouldn't be. He is, but it should be Viper.
I think that's Viper.
I'd say Braze is definitely
Probably.
up there. She just puts damage out there and
Yeah, but
says you can't.
Well, then
that's
by
still
that logic,
in
then it'd be
a
like, what
different
about
way, in a
Breach?
different
He
way.
has so many abilities that he can spam. He's got flashes, and he doesn't even have to be viewable. He can just do it behind walls and around corners.
Yeah, it's stalling on a. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how we.
It's a different
define
type of
stalling,
stall,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like only one hero has a impenetrable, well, not impenetrable wall, but a wall that physically
alters the
requires you to
terrain.
shoot or wait. Everything else is like, how long, like, do I go through? Now, Cypher, to be fair, Cypher became at worse at stalling because his cage no longer slows enemies as they move through it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think that changed much, to be completely honest. But I don't know
didn't
if
make
we'll
him
get
better,
to him.
but yeah.
It definitely didn't make him better, but I don't think it mattered.
Yeah.
And I agree, and that's why I
think
don't know if I
anybody's-
put Cypher as the staller.
Yeah. The thing is, I think at a high level, it does stall because, like,
Yeah, you don't want to
you
push through
gotta.
smoke.
Yeah, you don't want to push. I mean, you can, but like, you gotta figure out the camera first. You
Sure.
gotta waste some utility into that term. You're not just gonna dry push these bomb sites that Cypher would usually hold down, right? Like, you want to push and probe, then maybe take the tripwire out. Like, maybe you go in then, but most of the time you just waste cooldowns for a while. And Sage was just like ridiculous at that. She could just like day one, Sage could just lock down an entrance on a bomb site literally for the entire round.
I still
With,
think
like,
she's
smart
doing
timing.
that though. Like with the piece I wrote about like mouse boss, like Wardell does
Yeah.
that on Haven C all the time. Like
Yeah.
he will be the one sole agent holding C site.
Yeah.
They'll, like, a team will push through like C short and like kind of muscle their way in, and he just walls them off, and they have to work their way back. Like, they're not going to sit there and try to push through. Like, it physically removes you from pushing through that choke point.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Because if you shoot, you have to kind of like coordinate exactly one person shooting. It doesn't really get through. He can position. You can start calling rotations. It just physically stops you from. It literally locks you down. I think that's still where I would want Sage to be balanced. I think the slow orb definitely feels nicer. It's not as big. It's not as long. Great. The wall is where I come to blows with Riot, and it's like, we've learned in many games, one of which you've developed, altering the terrain of the map, not necessarily the subtle, unique ability that you think it is. It's just insane. It's just very, very good. So you need to balance elsewhere to make that fall in line, or make that kind of fit the average, or you just make it less good.
Here's the thing. Imagine Wall as an ultimate that only requires 3 blocks.
Yes.
That
Well,
would be a good ultimate.
I think it is a strong. Yeah, I would definitely put it up there. Like, I think that would be a fun ultimate to have over Rez. Like, leave it as is and just move it to ult, and then give her some other like utility. I like that a lot.
I don't know. I think, and we saw this quite a bit in Valhalla, where teams are just like, if a wall goes up, they shoot down the wall, and then they go and regroup and go another way. Now they have the option to come back if they want to, or they don't.
Sure.
You just kind of basically negate it, and you make sure that you don't die. The only time that the wall gives you information is if the Sage know that if the Sage is blind walling, they don't know that you're there. Which
Sure.
maybe happens sometimes, not as often as I think maybe is being led to believe here. It's, so the wall goes up, you shoot it, you sometimes have sometimes have 2 people shoot it, so you don't give away too much information, and then you go through one of the many other ways to one of the many other sites. Like, it's unfortunate if you decided to go all 5 down C long on Haven, and a wall goes up, and then you're like, well, crap, like there goes our speed and surprise. But at the same time, unless that's round 1, pretty much know where Sage is defending anyways.
I mean, you have maps, 3 sites. There's definitely more angles that it's a gamble on exactly where she's putting her, you know, her body, her avatar. Is it A? Is it C? Is it B? You know, if it's split, you have a 50-50 on where it's going to be, and then multiple other angles that she could be holding.
If they're switching up their defenders every round, which
does happen,
should be done.
Yeah,
it should be done more. I would just, and again, I'm not by no means the best player, right? So, but like in Valhalla, we didn't really see it. It's like, no, Cypher, you have Cypher and Sage holding down C. So Cypher holds down C. Sage holds down Garage and helps C. And then,
sure.
Yeah, and like that was just kind of a general thing. Like that's where Sage and Cypher go on Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's ever better to change that, even if you don't know all of a sudden where the wall's gonna go. But that also means as an attacking team, you
maybe, yeah,
you know where. And I don't think that that's gonna stay that way forever, for what it's worth. But I think for right now, that's how it's kind of been playing out.
Yeah,
if I only hear 2 people shoot into my wall and they actually destroy one, you bet I'm dry peeking them, like hearing the reload click instantly, or like even towards the tail end of their spray. Of course, like very good players will at the tail end, if they're actually completely spamming into it, will still have control over their spray where they could flick up. But it seems super safe to just like.
But also, it's you break it down to 20%, then you reload, and then you finish the remaining 20%. It's not technically a time loss. Like there's good big brain player ways to like bypass that. I agree. If you spam it all and you're on your last 10% of your ammo, finishing the wall, and you're just sitting in the open, like, yeah, well, at that point, I think you probably deserve to die too.
I think if people do that against you, you just man the wall. Like, let's say on C long, you just wall up, and left side is one of you, right side is one of you. If that is a predictable thing, like you just swing in. But yeah, I think in general there is counterplay. I also think that the wall is very likely better in solo queue, where it's like you just controlled space so much, especially mid control.
Sure. Yeah.
Almost every map is nuts because of it, and we can talk about that maybe not being as much the case anymore with split because of the spawn door. But yeah, in general, I still think like the utility and like the dimensions you can use wall with is pretty nutty.
Yeah.
Like for instance, what we sometimes do, and this is very wacky, but like it works. So it ain't stupid. Is on B Haven, right? That's the three bomb slide map.
Yep.
We go behind the point, with an AWP and a vandal, and we just boost ourselves over the cube, and just peek into window. Round about the start of the round, and that is it's a pretty sizable off angle. People usually when they swing would swing onto the corners, expecting people down, and you're just there and can pick them off, and the PK's advantage doesn't matter that much. Like that stuff is just cutesy, and vertical movement with it in some clutch situations is also like super valuable. It's requiring people to. Otherwise, it's not essentially different from any other utility that's forced out, where you rotate off and have it wasted. Right? I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah. I'm sure we will talk about Sage many a time on this show.
Yeah.
So let's talk. So Cypher Cage, we kind of touched on it briefly. No longer slows enemies through it. and they increased the spy cam cooldown from 30 seconds to 45 seconds.
Good changes.
Both fair changes. The justifications were pretty good. Like they were just a little, people were a little too aggressive with the spy cam. That's fine. I get it. Omen. Smoke duration increased from 12 seconds to 15 seconds. Dark smoke projectile increased the speed, and the cooldown was increased slightly from 30 to 35 seconds. They said they wanted to bring him a little bit more in line with Brimstone, who, by far right now is the strongest smokes in the game. And to be fair though, like I was talking with Avril about this, and this was last Sunday, so this patch wasn't even out yet.
Sure.
He thinks that Omen should be the fifth best hero in the game right now, which I can't remember who said what where.
I agree, Avril. I agree.
Didn't I say Omen was 5? I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, which I agree. And this, I think I put Brim, and then he put Brim at 4. We were talking about it. We were talking about our power breakers. He put Brim at 4. I wonder if this will switch those two for him, or not. Because I
think it just is a choice. Now you have a choice. It doesn't have to be Brim. It feels like in the past there was a lot of teams that were trying Omen. I think it was more just like player driven, whereas it's like I feel more comfortable on Omen than I do on Brim, so we're just going to play Omen, and it just feels like a worse Brimstone. Now I think there's more of a discussion around like you said, and like Riot said, bringing Omen in line with Brimstone, so it's a choice where it's like they do similar jobs, one a little bit differently than the other. I think that was already kind of the case, and I think this just pushes him up a little bit more in line.
But yeah, so he saw a nice little buff there.
Yeah, I like it.
We saw Viper Snake Bite radius increase from 350 to 450.
She needs more love, guys. Come on, Riot. You got a dead agent on your hands. She needs some love.
I'm not a dead agent, to be fair.
She's only used on one map.
Better than Phoenix.
I mean, yeah,
but yeah, I get, and better than Jet too, honestly.
Sure,
but they at least have play and like ladder and stuff like that. Whereas Viper, I think, is just underplayed in competitive and underplayed on ladder.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think she's that bad. I just think that, she's not like it just.
I don't like the fun argument. I don't like fun. Fun is subjective. We've got empirical, like you said. She's not being played in both settings. She needs some love. She needs some changes. Not, well, we're just bringing her in line with everybody else.
No, yeah, this is a small one. I think I wonder how the map changes on Split specifically. Help out Viper. Or if they don't.
Good.
At all.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like the only map that we're really seeing her, which I don't hate, right? But I think this would sway my opinion if Riot came out and said, like, we're going to have a lot of agents, or we're not going to really have like a big cast of agents. If we want to have a lot of agents, then fine. Like, we can have, agents that are kind of designated per the map and per the style that's, good at the moment. That's fine. You're going to have dead agents regardless. But if we're going to keep things small, I would hope that she has more use. Like, she has to have something that makes her more unique than just being played on one map sometimes for some teams.
Thinking about, go ahead, yes, guy. I saw you're about to.
No. Go on.
I was gonna say, I think though that they're probably, like, in the long run, Viper might be properly balanced, and the 4 to 5 players or agents that are always getting played might just be overtuned. Like, isn't that kind of the thing? Like, don't you want agents that excel in certain scenarios on certain maps? Like, especially once we're going to be up to 14, sure. I think, by the time launch happens, and then We know that they've got more planned from there. Like, in the end, don't you want, instead of this, rotating 4 or 5 agents, don't you want 9 or 10 that are only seen on certain maps?
I want that if we're going to have a big pool of agents, and that's something that Riot can clarify. But as of right now, it's more of a severity argument that she's too niche. I'd like her to be a little bit more useful rather than
in this scenario.
One map sometimes.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, but if we're gonna have a big cast, then fine, she can stay where she's at. Maybe give her like some more niche buffs to maybe her resources, stuff like that. That doesn't really change her identity.
Sure,
that's fine if we're gonna have a lot of different agents. But if we only have a small cast and one of them's just dead, like Jett, again, I don't know what you do to Jett to make her just better, because I think she's either going to be insane or useless. Viper's on that edge where it's like she's kind of left of center right now, but if we bring her back in line with some love, that isn't just, well, her radius with her molly's just, on par with everybody else's. Like, that doesn't, that's just average now. Like, give her something that makes her more unique. Give her something that's going to push people into playing her, not.
And maybe the maps in the future just make her better, and just
possibly.
Maybe it's just Haven and Bind
can't deny that.
Into her maps.
Totally. Gotta give you that.
Ability tuning. Bee hopping, Yiska. Bee hopping just got the big nerf here. The height required to jump out of
area of denial
abilities increased from 80 to 120. And the tick speed for incendiary, fireball, and snakebite was increased as well.
See, I'd like this. Like, this is like if we just stop saying incendiary, fireball, and just said snakebite. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. If we just increase the damage tick rate for Viper, just across the board on our wall, on our smoke, on our poison, her splash, I'm like, okay, that could be interesting. I'm not a big fan of increasing just direct damage done to the player through abilities, because again, at the end of the day, I think you should still want to have the guns be the damage dealers and just leave the utility to the abilities. But increasing the tick rate on like this healable damage taken, I don't hate. I think that would be an interesting point. But yeah, just a further remove bee hopping is kind of a drat for me. I like seeing players, do stuff that normal people can't do because they've practiced it, and gives you that pretty high skill ceiling. I hope they keep it in the game. They say they want to, but everything so far tells me that they don't. So we'll see.
Well, it doesn't completely.
No, it doesn't. But it's. I mean, we got it removed with Sage's Slow Orb. Now it's with AOD spells. It's. You might as well just. I don't know. Like, I'm sure there's always going to be a use for it, but I thought it was cool before. It's not going to like completely turn me off of the game, and I don't think it's really turning anybody off of the game, but it's like, come on. I wish we would have kept it. I thought it was cool.
All right. Last thing before we have to get out of here, Yiska, I'm throwing this one to you. Let's talk economics a bit. The max credit cap was reduced from 12,000 credits to 9,000 credits. We've had a lot of discussions about econ. How do you feel about not being able to pocket those additional 3,000 credits?
That's actually huge, I feel. Like, that's a big change.
Big change.
Like, you got to juggle economy a little bit more between teammates now, where, you know the guy that has to die every round even though he's stomping.
Bro, I'm right here.
That guy needs to be bought for. Yeah. How does that work, by the way? If you request a Vandal and I buy it for you, do you get my skin?
I think. Pretty sure.
Oh.
Just like dropping it.
Damn. Okay. But yeah. I think it's a pretty big one, and it's kind of like limits how far ahead you can get the game. That's basically a thing. Like, it's a full buy round less that you can save up, and I kind of like it, actually. I think that's a positive. It disincentivizes ARPing even more, I feel, where
it disincentivizes ARPing. Okay.
If you're at 12K, you might as well. right? With the AWP. Like it's, let's say the AWP is in most cases a 10% better weapon in a specific angle that you want to hold. And you had 12K.
You might as well, I guess.
You can eat that 4.5K way easier, or let's say the additional 1.6K that you pay in on top of what you would have for Vandal, right? So that hurts significantly less when I'm at 12K and might win the next round as well, where I don't have to buy and, you know, like live, than at 9K. At 9K, I can't buy back-to-back ops when I'm losing, right?
Sure. Yeah.
With all the utility like that you might use, as well as armor and stuff like that. So I think in that regard, it matters. And still, I kind of like it simply because like getting away with the game is a little punishing, especially on attack. Like if they string some rounds against you, defense is already favored. It helps also seemingly with team morale. Like I'm not sure how much people keep up with economy on the scoreboard. Like I've talked to people who don't look at the enemy economy at all, and that's very interesting.
Yeah,
because it definitely affects how I play.
Just kidding.
How they perceive the next round to be. But it's like, or what they think to be encountering. Like if someone has a lot of money, then it's like, oh yeah, this guy has a lot of money. This is what I'm thinking in my mind. This might be an op on A, right? Let's say split on long, directly looking at the orb angle, right? So I feel like it could feel a little demoralizing being down so much economy in comparison. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is the gameplay effect of just having like one less buffer of buy round that team had that was winning ridiculously.
Definitely kind of stops you from just like snowballing out of control with like the first like 5 or 6 rounds. Like it still kind of gives you a way back in. Just there's more of a kind of catch up, not drastically much more, but definitely can kind of beat people on ecos that they're having to take more of now. Again, that along with the ability or a good amount of the abilities or the spells in the game being increased in terms of cost, I think is a good thing. Yeah, I like more tactical ideas. I like more punishment on the economy side, and it's always been kind of a staple of these kind of tactical shooters. I like that a lot, and I think they're bringing that more in line with what I'd like to see.
I think the economy is something that we still haven't fully, like, just as a community in general, like, fully kind of like gotten to a point where there's a really clear like feeling and understanding on it. Like there's still just so much being changed and learned about every week. Teams are approaching things differently, and so I don't know. I'm optimistic that I think this is a good change, right? I mean, effectively, like if we wanted to simplify it down to, you know, like its most simple thing, you're essentially pulling away one full buy round away from a cap team or a team that's very much ahead, right? So, you know, like that's significant.
Totally.
So, yeah. All right. We're not going to really talk about this. We probably should. But we're actually going to just get out of here. But there was a bunch of map changes, specifically for Split on barriers, and they removed and changed some walls and hallways and things to open it up a little bit, make it a little less high ground defense driven. And I think overall good. Like I haven't heard anybody say like, oh no, these are the bad changes. I think some people are wanting more, some people wanted different ones. but I don't know of anybody I don't know anybody who likes to play Split who isn't a Viper main. And
Sure.
I don't know anybody who's saying that Split is the best map right now. So, hey.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
No.
As far as
Go away with ropes. Ropes
Yeah.
are so unfun. Jesus Christ.
I
Ropes are
don't
dumb.
I don't like them. Like I don't like that skill thing there.
Yeah.
Like, but can that just be another you learn bee hopping, you learn rope climbing and
What's there
shooting.
to learn with it?
Up down,
Just
up down.
hold
Have you
shift
seen
to go
some of
up?
have you seen some of the people like shoot up and down and like
Yeah. I mean, you still get like this dumb bloom on it. I don't know. Just
yeah, that's fair. I mean,
Some
I don't
sort
like
of
it. I
needless
hate it.
mechanic that they
I
put in the
hate it,
game.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just like making positions where you have to jump down to
Give
be
me
accessible.
vent stairs. Just give me vent stairs.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna get. Tournaments this weekend or that are either going on or we have Valhalla, which I will be hosting on Sunday. Absolute Masters, the Solari Cup, and then the Mandatory Cup actually finished, but it was a pretty good one, so I recommend going back. Team Hip coming in, I think, second. So
Fish 1, 2, 3 up there. Definitely
Fish
a
1, 2,
team
3,
to
one of those
keep your eyes on.
early teams to watch. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out of here. And before we do, let's thank our iTunes reviews, Joe. Who we got?
iTunes, we've got Jerobi37. Thank you for supporting the show. And if you are pinching some pennies during COVID, don't feel bad. Just go on iTunes. If you want to support the show, leave a comment. We love and appreciate that, and we'll shout you on the show if you make sure you leave your name. And it helps a lot. Helps with the algorithm and the magic that it brings us. It definitely helps a ton, and we appreciate your support.
Yay. Yiska, subs. What subs do we have during the show today?
What? How would I collect that information? Did you write that down?
It's literally down in the closing areas. Pretend I just said, who are the patrons?
Yeah, who are the patrons?
We don't have patrons, but
We don't have patrons. I stop trolling. Wait, where is that?
We're just gonna see.
I'm not even gonna lie. I don't know how to say the second one. To be fair, not that he's.
Wait, how do you find? Do you just scroll up in chat, or
No.
What if they were just in the show notes where we put all the shout outs for the week?
To Big Yogurt and Not a Season for your support. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate your money that you gave to us. Your subbage.
Oh,
thank you.
Did you find it, Yiska?
yeah, I was on the first episode. I was like, what are you talking about? Even though I read the rest of the notes. Yeah, I don't know.
So
Happens.
maybe that's why you were a little quiet on the episode. Is you're like, when are they going to talk? Like you're coming up with all these ideas for topics that we discussed in episode 1. Oh, all right. Chat, thanks so much for hanging out. You can find the show. We record live on Fridays at noon, twitch.tv/KickedTripod. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/spikedrop, and follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/spikedrop. That's brand new. We'd really appreciate your sub there. We also would really appreciate your sub right here at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. We are over our 100 subscriber goal. So thank you so much. And thanks for helping us maintain that through this one. And also help us if you like the show. If you like Spike Drop and you're like, you know what, Overwatch League isn't really our thing, but I'm available Mondays and Wednesdays at noon. Come check out Tactical Crouch and check out the live stream there. We love to hang out with you guys. And, we're really close to partner. And so we really appreciate all the help that we can get in getting there. Other than that, Yiska, shout outs for the week, and where can people find you?
As always, at Yiska out on Twitter, writing stuff for GG Recon. I'm upping my volume. I'm probably going to be at 3 pieces of Valorant next week, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, looking forward to watching some tournaments and writing about that, so stay tuned for that.
Sweet. Joe, what about you? What's going on?
can find me on all the socials at Volamel. That's VOLAMEL. This week, we got to talk about Mouse Boss, who I think should be signed already. Definitely a big name, a lot of big names from CSGO if you're familiar with that, but a lot of experience, fantastic team, very aggressive team. Super excited to see them progress in the Valorant esports space, but that kind of feature / profiles on GG Recon. Definitely take a look at that. And if you're more inclined for Overwatch, I think today we just put out the new York Excelsior. I don't know why I had a minor stroke saying that, but we got there. The new New York Excelsior. We try. We profile their more aggressive turn and their evolution from being, the turtle and being the hare. So yeah, check that out if you're an NYXL fan and if you're more inclined to Overwatch.
Nice. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, twitch.tv/KickedTripod, youtube.com/KickedTripod, and twitter.com/KickedTripod. If you are at all interested in the race to mayhem type stuff that we've been doing, I've been posting kind of my workouts and post-workout stuff on my Instagram, actually. So Instagram.com/KickedTripod, or just KickedTripod on Instagram. No, but our CrossFit gym is downstairs, and so they let us borrow. We have a rower. I've got a 35 and 50 pound dumbbell, and I think a 67 pound kettlebell. I think Katie's got a 22.5 pound dumbbell. I got a couple ab mats. And nice. So like we're able to do it's really cool. Our gym, they have like, you have a home gym workout, and then if you have like a partial gym workout, and then if you have just like a completely I don't have any equipment workout, and they post those every day for us to like stay active. And so Katie and I, we've been doing row races. It's where you row 100 meters and you try to land exactly on the 100, 200, 300, 400 meters. And if you land on it, you don't have to do any burpees. But if you're over or under any number of meters, you have to do that many burpees. So it's a really good workout. Just kind of back and forth and a nice little competitive thing. So yeah, we've been posting all that there. That's going to do it for us, though. Chat, thank you again for hanging out. We really appreciate you. Hope you had fun today. We will be back on Monday for Tactical Crouch and next Friday for Spike Drop. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.